Today's question is, can someone write music and be a composer or piano/guitar player without knowing music theory? Hi, this is Friedemann from Holistic Songwriting. Thanks for joining me. To answer your question, yes, absolutely. And the Beatles are often a very commonly named example. Beatles didn't have no musical background and still wrote some fantastic music. And if you analyze that music, it makes total sense. And it's really fantastic what they did, even though they didn't know what they were doing. So while music theory isn't essential to writing, it certainly helps. There's just things about music theory that make it much easier to come up with new and exciting stuff than if you didn't know it. So that being said, don't expect to be able to write some amazing music just because you know this stuff. These are really two different things. And that's first and foremost because classical music theory, first of all, is just that. It's classical, right? It's made for classical music and not necessarily for pop music. And secondly, it's really an analytical tool. It's not a creative tool. And that's something that a lot of, I think, universities kind of forget. But it's such an important thing to understand, is that music theory was not meant for creating music. It was meant for studying music. So it's really easy to look at an amazing piece of music and go, well, yeah, of course it works. It's because of this, this, and this, and this, and this. But creating a piece of music, and you probably have created something, I know the feeling very well. You sit in front of a piece of paper and you're thinking, well, or in your sequencer nowadays, and it's about, well, what do I do? And it's never that I'm like, oh, well, I just used the formula from music theory on page 283, and it's like, oh yeah, it goes like this, of course, and then I just write, and then the music's done. That's not how it works. And it shouldn't work like that, because music, first and foremost, should come from the heart and should be emotional and should be felt. And even though I like music theory very much, it has helped me more than once. I mean, when I started writing music, I wrote music for 5 years without having any idea, any clue about music theory. And when I listened back to those songs, they were simple, harmonically and melodically, but they work, and I still like them. I think they're still groovy, good songs, and everything that I want in a song is in those songs. Because what they have still is emotion. Number one thing always, never forget emotion. That's one of the most important things in a song. And it's so easy to forget that once you start studying music theory, because you start thinking about all these other things, and all of a sudden emotion is like, oh yeah, sure, we'll get to that, Let's just make sure that all the chords, that the voice leading in the chords is nice. But basically, none of that really matters. What's really important is emotion. That's really what it's all about. And then next thing is hooks, lyrical storytelling, and groove. And then, to a lesser extent, lyrics and production. Those kind of are my big five. Music theory can help you, especially if you're trying to come up with new original things, because it shows you things that you haven't tried before, right? If I look at music theory, I'll be, oh, I've never tried to add an 11 to a melody over a major chord, and let's see how I can make that work without it sounding total shite. Something like that. It might be worth a try, and that's kind of where music theory is interesting. What I do recommend to new writers, if you're just starting out as a songwriter, I recommend stay away from music theory for a little while, because if you don't have music theory, it will help you develop a hunch of what sounds good and what doesn't, rather than reading it in a book, and the book tells you this will sound good, this will sound shite, and then you're like writing music based off of that. What I'd rather have you do is write music just using your ears. Just listen to what you're hearing and be like, okay, I don't like that. Why do I not like that? And then figure it out based on what you know. So that will help you develop a hunch of what's good and bad. A lot of my friends, I've noticed, kind of lost their soul once they started learning music theory. A lot of conservatory students were relatively new to music theory, started learning about music theory just for their exams to get into the study. And their first songs using music theory and sound really cold because they're trying to do interesting things instead of emotional things that move their audience, which is the most important thing. And never ever forget that. I've said that so many times in this video now, but never ever forget, the most important thing is to move your audience.